Have you ever felt like you want to make some big changes in your life, but you don't know where to start? Or maybe you've tried to make changes before, but found it too overwhelming and ended up giving up. If so, you're not alone.
Research has shown that making small, incremental changes to our habits can lead to big improvements in our overall happiness and health. And the best part is, these changes don't have to be drastic or overwhelming. In fact, sometimes the smallest changes can have the biggest impact.
As we kick off 2023, we're discussing the power of small habit changes and how they can improve your overall well-being.
But first, this is the Fit Mess, where together we learn to develop habits that help us live beyond our mental health struggles to create happier, healthier lives.
He's Zach. He lives in the future with his anxiety.
He's Jeremy, and he lives in the past with his depression. And we get together once a week in the present to share the obstacles we face and how we overcome them. You know, as we're celebrating the new year, I almost feel like it's still 2020 because the last 3 years have just been kind of weird.
Bit of a blur.
A little bit of a blur, but the only reason I do know that the last 3 years have happened is because I have a lot of new things in my life, from habits and rituals and things like that I've implemented over the last 3 years. So there is proof that the last 3 years did happen because of the power of habits in my life.
And clearly all those habits, you did them all overnight, right? You just woke up one morning and said, that's it. I'm making all these changes. I'm doing them all tomorrow. And it's just going to be smooth sailing and perfect from here.
Yep. I took on like 63 new habits all on January 1st, 2020. And I've done every single one of them every single day for the last 3 years. And I mean, it's been no problem.
It's just that easy, right? I mean, why we don't even need to do this podcast anymore. Just decide you're going to do all the things, do them tomorrow. That's it. Thanks for showing up, everybody.
It. Yeah, no, end of show. See everyone.
All right. But in reality, take us back a little bit. How did you get to where you are? What kind of habits have you implemented?
There's been a few. COVID was a little rough on me from a physical perspective. I hurt myself quite a few times. So like I completely got out of the habit of working out. Eating was another issue, like just all over the place. Social media was my place of connection while we were in COVID. Like I couldn't see anyone, so I was on social media all the time. So I developed some bad habits that I had to turn around and get rid of them. So, I got back into my physical activity. My body is almost back to pre-COVID standards. My eating is back. My social media usage is still a little too high for my liking. I mean, I limit myself to 15, 20 minutes a day, but yeah, I mean, that's still too much.
Yeah.
But I've got a lot more to do. The one thing that I want to work on this year is really more the mental sharpness. Like I feel like I've lost my ability to focus as deeply as I used to be able to. I'm not blaming COVID for my inability to focus. I'm really blaming old age maybe, or other habits. I don't know. But I just feel like I'm not able to focus as much as I used to be able to focus. So part of, I won't say it's a resolution, this because I've started this before the new year. I'm putting habits into place to give me the practice time for focus and be really mindful about focusing. So a lot of meditation, yoga, blocking off an hour for focused work and putting my phone away, things like that. So it's going to be an interesting year in trying to get that back, but all of my other habits are pretty solid. And now that they're solid, they're not brand new. I'm used to them. I wake up at 4:30, I go to the gym, I do my daily planning, and we're good to go. Now it's time to introduce a new small incremental change.
That is the key. We talk about it all the time, is just that making sure whatever changes you make are really small. But another thing that, and I think that, again, we're not really into resolutions here, but just things that I am sort of approaching differently this year. The last few months, I started a job as a coach in the podcasting space. And it's really become extremely clear to me how much having that coach, having a leader in your life that can make sure you're staying the course, right? Holding you accountable, pointing you in the right direction to the things you need to get done. Being that for other people has really shown me how much value there really is in it, even though we've talked about it for years. We know it, but putting it into practice has made it painfully clear for me. So I think this is going to be the year where I ask for help more, and I'm going to turn to coaches and leaders to show me better ways to do things, because I have a really bad habit of letting myself off the hook. I let myself make bad choices over and over again. And, in the last few days, especially, I've been trying to track my behaviors, trying to track like the things I'm eating, the amount of movement I'm getting in the day. And it's one of those things where like I'm aware of it, But when you see it on paper, when you see the numbers, when you see the data, and it really hits you over the head with like, okay, no, you have a bad habit of letting yourself off the hook, of not reaching the benchmarks that you set as important to you. Seeing them on paper and glowing at me from my screen has become really clear. And so I'm painfully aware of how much help I need. And so I think that's what my habit is going to be, is leaning into, this is hard. Where can I find help? And reaching out and getting it.
I'm really happy you said that. And if you do need any help, please reach out to somebody else. Seriously, though, I think that's actually a really commendable thing, right? That you've recognized that letting yourself off the hook is a habit, right? There's good habits, there's bad habits. That one is a habit that you need to remove, right? We've all got good ones, we've all got bad ones. And when we're talking about these small incremental changes, we're going to replace a habit or stop doing a habit completely. You don't have to replace it with something else. But if you're trying to remove something and introduce something else, sometimes that doesn't work well either.
I quickly want to mention our sponsor, Athletic Greens. If you want to empty that overflowing cabinet full of vitamins and replace them with one great tasting drink, then order Athletic Greens now, so you can not only give your body what it needs to thrive, but we'll give you a free year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. The link to try it out is in the show notes for this episode at thefitmess.com. So we have sort of a few keys to consider as you listen to this episode. You think about what are the habits you want to bring into 2023 for you, whether it's you see it as a resolution or it's just, a time to reflect and do things differently. It's just that tends to happen this time of year. So like you just mentioned, like one of the main things to consider is just identifying it, right? Like figuring out what is the thing that I want to change. Am I not getting up as early as I'd like? Am I, eating the wrong foods? Am I not getting enough exercise? Am I not prioritizing sleep? Like all these little things, it really starts with just identifying it, right? So that you can decide, how am I going to deal with this? Am I going to cut out the Netflix binge at night so that I can get to bed on time? Am I going to meet with a nutritionist and come up with how much protein do I need in my life? Are you going to drink more water? Like whatever it is, like really identifying it first is the first step.
Yeah. And being really clear about, after you've identified it, whether it's something you need to stop doing or if it's something that you need to replace. So as an example, spending too much time on Facebook. Do you need to replace that with anything? No, not really. It's going to free up time and you're going to do other things. But I wouldn't say that you should take all the time you're spending on Facebook and go do something else. On the other hand, if your goal is to eat better, well, that is a replacement, right? Because if you don't have a plan in place for, I'm not going to eat ice cream, I'm going to eat X. When you get hungry and you don't have X defined, you'll go back to the ice cream.
And it's important to make the habit change easy, right? So whether it's cutting down on social media, maybe that means pulling the apps off your phone so that it's not as easy to access them. If it is a diet change, making sure that the food you have in your house is the food you want to be eating, not the food that's there because it looked good when you were wandering the aisles at the grocery store and you were super hungry and made some terrible choices. So making sure that you're set up for success is really important. I know for me, I have too many social media apps on my phone. I need to delete them because it's really easy to get sucked down that rabbit hole. And, you can set all the timers you want in the world, but when the timer says, would you like more time? It's really easy to go, yeah, all right, sure. So removing access to the things that feed those bad habits is one of the easiest ways to make sure that you can change them.
So an area where I struggle whenever I'm putting a new habit in place, Jeremy, you know this about me, and I would guess anyone listening knows this about me too. I tend to bite off more than I can chew on a pretty regular basis. And that's also true whenever I'm trying to put a new habit in place. I mean, we joked at the beginning about putting a whole bunch of habits in place and I do that a lot. And I remind myself all the time why it's really important to start small, really, really small incremental things. And I love this, 2-minute rule to building a new habit where whatever it is you're doing, you should be able to complete in 2 minutes or less, or break it down to something that's 2 minutes or less so that you can actually do it. Everyone's got 2 minutes in their day. I don't care who you are. You have 2 minutes to do whatever it is you're looking for. I have in the past, taken on a new habit that takes 6 hours per day, like just completely unmanageable. So I love breaking it down to something really, really, really small. Like if you're going to eat better, start with one meal a day,
Mm-hmm.
not all the meals.
Yeah.
Or if you want to start exercising, start with a walk around the block, not an hour at the gym lifting weights that you can't lift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it never ends well, right? You hit the gym for that first time, you spent an hour in there, and all of a sudden you can't move for 3 days, and so your habit has already broken because you're too sore to actually follow up on the habit. So, doing those small little things is what sets you up for success because it just builds that confidence, it builds that foundation to be able to go from 2 minutes of putting on the shoes to 5 minutes of putting on the shoes and walking out the door to 10 minutes of putting on the shoes, walking out the door, and going around the block, and just growing from there. It just becomes so much easier. I know I'm sort of suffering a little bit of that right now with working with a coach who is helping me figure out how to eat better while moving more, while focusing on more sleep, while cutting out a lot of the caffeine that I've been drinking. I was sort of chasing all of that in my head yesterday. It's because it's only been a few days, and I'm already like, oh, this is too much. How do I keep track of all this? It's a lot. Even the app is too organized. Like there's kind of a lot that I'm trying to do at once, and I'm already seeing the pattern of this is hard. Give up. Try again another way. There's some other magical tool. There's some other thing that's going to work better. And it's just that I'm biting off more than I can chew right now. So I need to scale back and go, okay, where can I start? What can I eliminate from these changes I'm trying to make the ones that I can focus on even more effective? And through all of these changes that I'm trying to make and that you're likely trying to make, you have to remember why you're making them. There has to be a bigger, better offer than whatever is feeding the bad habits now or is not letting you accomplish the things you're trying to accomplish. I mean, I must have told the story a million times by now about adopting the identity of the weird guy who rides his bike to work every day. Like I didn't just want to start riding my bike, right? Like I sort of had to talk myself into it. And I talked myself into it through the help of a doctor who was like, if you don't do this, you're going to have to replace your knees. And so I had to decide, am I the guy that's going to keep doing what I'm doing and end up with 2 knee replacements when I'm, 65 years old? Or am I the guy who's going to do the things now that I can look back on in 20 years and say, hey, good job. You made the right choice. And so really focusing on who is the person I'm trying to become through these habits and what is the why? Like what is the thing that is generating the need to make these changes? By staying focused on that is what's ultimately going to fuel your desire to continue to build these habits and quit relying on motivation to do better, which is never going to come.
You're so right. Like motivation doesn't come. However, if you do have a bad habit, there's a lot of motivation behind those bad habits.
That is true.
And I'm not kidding. Like I know I've recognized this cue in myself, and this is why I have limited time on Facebook and Instagram on my phone. I have recognized that whenever I'm in a situation where I'm uncomfortable or I'm doing something that I don't know how to do, and this is usually like work related or plumbing or something that's just like outside of my sphere of expertise, which is a really small sphere, but so it's most of the time. Whenever I'm in that realm, like that's a cue for me. And I would go for my phone and I'd open up Facebook and I had to recognize that. I had to see it. And we all have these cues for bad habits. We all do. What something triggers it, and that motivation to continue on with that bad habit is reinforced and kicks in every time. So in my example, I had to limit the amount of time that I could use Facebook and Instagram on my phone. Like literally had to put timers on it like I'm a child. And that's how I fixed it for the most part. But like you said at the beginning, you can extend your time if you really want to. And then that's where discipline comes in. But those cues are really, really powerful and very motivating for those bad habits. So just figuring out what those cues are is really important.
Yeah, there's nothing more instantly gratifying when you are having an emotional moment than popping up in the pantry and deciding what garbage can I put in my face to numb this pain for a little bit. How often have you found yourself trying to escape whatever is going on inside by turning on the Xbox and playing a video game for an hour or 4? There's all these things that we can immediately put band-aids on the pain that we're trying to stuff down or whatever. So it's very different than when you're trying to see the long-term goal of 10 years from now, what's going to be the end result. How am I going to affect my kids 20 years from now? When right now you can go, I'll feel better when I do this right now.
Yeah, that's really funny. You described my morning. Like I hit the pantry and then played a video game.
It's a little too familiar, I think, for too many of us.
It was after all of my other daily habits, though.
Oh, all the good ones, right? You gotta have balance, right? A few good ones, a few
Uh,
bad ones.
that's right. I got the gym in. I woke up early. I got to the gym. I did my daily planning. Even though I don't have work today, I still planned my day, and I planned on, you know, playing a video game. The pantry trip was extra.
It's a little bonus. I think in the end, like the main takeaway, I think that I hope people leave this episode with is when you're making these changes, it's so easy to focus on what is the end result, right? Like I'm going to eat better so that I can look better. I'm going to lift more weights so that I have more muscles and feel more confident on the beach or whatever. Like you're going to be so focused on the thing 6 months from now, a year from now, 10 years from now, that it can become a grind and you don't really fall in love with the process and fall in love with the habit itself that creates the outcome. So by really just focusing on almost treating it like a checklist of did I do this thing today, will allow you in 6 months to look back at the last 6 months and go, man, look how far I've come, rather than spending 6 months going, oh, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Because when you pursue it from that angle, it's a punishment every day of that you haven't reached the goal yet. You haven't reached, you're not there yet. But if it's just, I did this today, check, then you can move on to the next and then reevaluate in time and see how far you've come. And that's where the real reward from any habit change comes, is being able to look back at how far it brought you rather than focusing on where you hope it's going to end up for you.
Yeah. I like to focus on today, just today, like for whatever goal I have, whatever habit I've got. If I just do these things today, that's it. That's all I need to focus on is today. I don't have to worry about tomorrow or the next day or the day after that. It's just getting through today. And then tomorrow I'm going to get through today again. Like if you break it down to that, it's manageable. But if you think about something that you have to do for every single day for the next 6 months, like if I think about all the workouts I'm going to do between now and 6 months from now, I would just throw up.
Or now and the rest of your life, right? Because it's something you're going to have to do for the rest of your life. That becomes the giant elephant.
Exactly. So like you build it as a habit and you just get through today. Don't worry about tomorrow for some of these things. You will get to your goal if you just worry about today. All right. As we kind of wrap this conversation up, there's really nothing that you and I have said in this whole podcast that anyone can't find Googling, right?
True.
This is all basically out there. But what you don't see, right? You see all these websites that just say, do this, do this, do this, do this, and you will be happy and you will be amazing. Shit is hard. Like it's really, really hard to do this. You're going to get frustrated and you're going to talk down to yourself. You are going to be mean to yourself for not completing your goals, for not doing the habit, for not doing the thing. It's really fucking hard. Like all of these things, whatever it is you're trying to do, it's really hard. So just take a small win every single day when you do your thing that you did it that day, and really celebrate that, because making these changes in our lives is such a hard thing. And they don't talk about that on a lot of these websites. So please celebrate it. Take your wins and know that what you're doing is one of the hardest things that human beings have to do.
And don't get discouraged when there's setbacks, right? I mean, that's what's going to happen. You cannot be perfect every day. Whatever the goals are that you've laid out for yourself, you're going to fall short. Life's going to get in the way. There are going to be things that stop you from doing them every day. And if you beat yourself up every time that happens, then that becomes the new habit. All of a sudden, this is a punishment every day. So you have to approach these things with compassion. You have to approach them with the forgiveness that you would offer your child or someone close to you, because you will fail every day. There will be something as the list grows. You will fail at something every day. And the more you allow for that to happen and forgive it and approach it with compassion and just try again next time, the more progress I think you're going to make. I'm not saying let yourself off the hook, but just don't fall into the habit of beating yourself up every time you aren't able to check off one of these habits for that day.
Yeah, absolutely. You are a wonderful human being. And because you're a human being, you're going to miss every now and again.
Oh, thanks. Oh, wait, you weren't talking to me.
I'm talking to everyone. You're fairly adequate.
I'm a fairly adequate human being. I'll take that as a win. I'll take that as a win.
You should go back to bed now.
I should. Well, Zach, we're wrapping up the first episode of 2023, a new year, and it's hard to believe we're going into our 5th year of this podcast.
I know. I can't believe that. I'm actually really surprised that you've put up with me for 5 years.
You're surprised.
Yeah, I imagine it's been a hard 5 years for you.
It's had its challenges, like any habit, building a good habit, small steps, a little effort here and there, but here we are. And if you like the show and you want to help keep it going, we have a simple way for you to do that. First, you can simply share this episode with someone who you think needs to hear it. Lots of people are trying to take on new challenges and build new habits, and if you think this may be helpful for them, please share it with them, forward it, post about it on social media, whatever works for you. Another way you can support the show is by buying us a coffee, or 2 or 5, whenever someone does that. It really does make our day, and we literally take that cash and buy coffee with it. So you can do that through the Buy Me a Coffee link on our website at thefitmess.com. That's also where we will be back next week with a brand new episode. Thanks for listening.
See you, everyone.
And Happy New Year.
We know this podcast is amazing and doesn't seem to lack anything, but we need a legal disclaimer. Prior to implementing anything discussed in this podcast, it is your responsibility to conduct your own research and consult your physician. You should assume that Jeremy and Zach don't know what they're talking about, and they're not liable for any physical or emotional issues that occur directly or indirectly from listening to this podcast.